Right now, on a fenced-off preserve somewhere in the United States, there are 3 animals that by every rule we thought we understood should not exist. 2 brothers and a younger sister, white-coated, big, and, according to the company that made them, members of a species that died out at the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, the dire wolf. And the obvious question is, did we actually just bring an extinct animal back from the dead? So let's get into it, because the real answer is so much weirder than a yes or a no. Over the long, messy history of life on this planet, extinction has always had one rule that never bends. It is permanent, forever. It is gone, full stop, no takebacks. That is just how it works, or at least how it has always worked. Because there is now a company that has decided that rule is more of a suggestion, and their whole reason for existing is to undo it. And the very first big animal they pointed at, the proof they wanted to show the world, was not the mammoth and not the dodo. It was the dire wolf. And to understand whether they pulled it off, you have to understand what a dire wolf actually was. Which, fun fact, is not the thing you are picturing. Okay, so thanks to a certain wildly popular TV show with dragons in it, most people now think the dire wolf is some mythical fantasy snow beast. It was real, very real. It prowled the Americas during the Ice Age, right alongside the saber-toothed cats and the giant ground sloths, and it was a serious animal, weighing somewhere around 150 pounds, which is roughly a quarter heftier than a big gray wolf today. So picture a wolf that skipped leg day for absolutely no day. And they were everywhere. We have pulled literally thousands of them out of the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles alone, which honestly is a grim way to become the best documented predator of your era. But here we are. But here is the twist that matters, and it is the whole ball game later. The dire wolf was not just a big gray wolf. It was not even that closely related to one. It belonged to its own separate genus, a different branch of the family tree entirely. And the 2 lines split apart somewhere around 5.5 to 6 million years ago. For perspective, that is older than the entire human genus. So, the dire wolf and the gray wolf looked similar the way a vulture and a stork look similar. Same vibe, very different address. Hold on to that, because a lot of very annoyed scientists are about to bring it up. So the animal goes extinct 12,000 years ago, and that, for a very long time, is the end of the story, until a biotech company called Colossal Biosciences decides it isn't. Now, here is where almost everybody gets the science wrong, so let me kill the myth right away. They did not find a frozen dire wolf, suck out its DNA, and grow a new one like sea monkeys. That is not what happened. It cannot happen, because DNA is not built to last. Over thousands of years, it shatters into tiny, useless fragments, so there was never a complete dire wolf blueprint sitting around to copy. What Colossal had instead was scraps. 2 of them, basically. A tooth, about 13,000 years old, and a piece of inner ear bone, about 72,000 years old. From those 2 scraps, they reconstructed a rough draft of the dire wolf genome. And then they did the clever, sneaky, deeply debatable thing. They did not build a dire wolf. They took a gray wolf, the animal alive today, and they edited it. Think of it like having a finished modern novel and a couple of burned pages from an ancient one, and instead of reprinting the old book, you just go through the new book and change a few words here and there to match. Make enough changes, maybe it starts to read like the older story. So how many words did they change? And this is the number that the entire argument hangs on. So really, sit with it. The gray wolf genome and the dire wolf genome differ by around 12 million letters of DNA. 12 million. Colossal made 20 edits. 20 across 14 genes. To put that in perspective, that is like changing 20 bricks in a building made of 12 million bricks, and then handing someone the keys and saying, "Congratulations, it is a totally different house now." 15 of those 20 edits came straight from what they found in the ancient dire wolf samples. The other 5 were tweaks to push the animal toward dire wolf traits, like a bigger body and a pale coat. And weirdly, for that white fur, they deliberately did not use the actual dire wolf gene, because the real version came with a risk of deafness and blindness. so they used a safer substitute instead. And here is the kicker that surprises everyone. Not one single piece of real dire wolf DNA went into these animals. None. They rewrote a gray wolf to imitate a dire wolf using gray wolf parts. One of Colossal's founders, the Harvard geneticist George Church, called it, quote, the largest number of precise genomic edits in a healthy vertebrate so far, end quote, which, fair, technically very impressive. Then came the actual baby making, which was its own gauntlet. They took the edited cells, pulled out the nucleus, the bit holding all the genetic code, and slotted it into dog egg cells to build embryos. They made 45 of these engineered embryos and implanted them into surrogate mothers, which were, of all things, large domestic dogs. Big hound mixes, basically, hired as the world's most unbothered foster moms. And then they waited. Out of all of it, 3 pups made it. 2 males born on the 1st of October, 2024, named Romulus and Remus, after the mythical brothers raised by a wolf, and a little female born a few months later in January of 2025, named Khesi, because, of course, she was. The company even brought in the author of The Dragon Show as an investor first, which tells you exactly how much of this project was science, and how much was a marketing department doing backflips. And the moment Colossal announced these 3 to the world as resurrected dire wolves, a large chunk of the scientific community completely lost it. Because remember, that whole separate genus, 6 million years apart, 20 edits out of 12 million thing. Critics pointed at it immediately. The science writer Carl Zimmer, who covered the story for the New York Times, put it about as plainly as you can. Quote, it's not a dire wolf, end quote. A paleogeneticist named Nick Rawlins called the animals, quote, a gray wolf with dire wolf-like characteristics, end quote, and then drove it home with, quote, this is not a de-extincted dire wolf, end quote. Their argument is basically that you cannot tweak 20 spots in a gray wolf and call the result a different species that has been gone for 12,000 years. That is not resurrection. That is a very expensive gray wolf in a costume. And here is the part that really stings for Colossal. One of the loudest doubts came from inside their own house. Tom Gilbert is an evolutionary geneticist who actually advises the company. He is on the team, and even he said the famous white coat is probably just wrong. His exact words, quote, there is no chance in hell a dire wolf is going to look like that, end quote. Based on where dire wolves actually lived, he figured the real animal, quote, basically would have looked like a slightly larger coyote, end quote. Not a majestic snow white beast, quote, not a majestic snow white beast. The white fur, a lot of researchers think, owes way more to the TV show than to the fossil record. So, yeah, the animal may have been partly designed to look like the thing people already had in their heads. But to be fair, because we are fair around here, Colossal has an answer, and it is not a dumb one. Their chief science officer is a well-respected biologist named Beth Shapiro, and when the backlash hit, she did not deny the facts. The company never hid that these are edited gray wolves. What they pushed back on was the philosophy itself. Their stance was, quote, species are ultimately a human construct, end quote, and that other scientists are free to call the animals whatever they want. And then they planted the flag anyway. Quote, Khesi, Romulus, and Remus are the first dire wolves to walk the earth in 12,000 years, end quote. And honestly, that little phrase, species are a human construct, is the entire debate squished into 4 words. Because what even is a species? We treat it like a hard line painted on nature, but the line is way blurrier than most people think. So Colossal's argument goes like this. If an animal looks like a dire wolf, is built to behave like one, and carries genes pulled from real dire wolf remains, then, for all practical purposes, why not just call it one? They have a name for this. Functional de-extinction. Not a perfect carbon copy, but a working stand-in. And the critics' comeback is just as short. Looking like something is not the same as being it. You can shave a poodle to look like a lion. You have not made a lion. So, who is right? And the genuinely annoying answer is kind of both. The technology is real and seriously impressive. The label slapped on top of it is doing more heavy lifting than the science can back up. Both things are true at the exact same time, which is the most frustrating possible outcome for anyone who wanted a clean headline. And here is why this matters, way beyond 3 wolves on a ranch, because this exact same fight is about to happen, over and over. Colossal is coming for the woolly mammoth next, and the dodo, and the Tasmanian tiger, and every single time we are going to be standing right back here asking the same question. If you make an elephant that is hairy and cold resistant and chunky, is that a mammoth or is it an elephant in a winter coat? The dire wolf is just the first time we have all had to argue about it out loud. There is also a quieter point that tends to get buried under all the yelling. Even the harshest critics admit that the tools used to build these wolves could genuinely help animals that are still alive right now. The same gene editing could boost the diversity of endangered species that are circling the drain and pull them back before they tip over the edge. So even if the dire wolf label is 100% hype, the technology underneath it might end up actually saving things. As for the 3 wolves themselves, they will never be released into the wild. They live out their whole lives on that secret preserve, which runs about 2,000 acres, so roughly 1,500 football fields of land, watched around the clock behind tall fences. They are not rebuilding a lost ecosystem. They are not hunting ice age prey. They are, when you really boil it down, the most expensive and most argued over pets on the entire planet. A living proof of a technology and a living question we still have not figured out how to answer. So I will throw it to you. These animals are real. The science is real. But the name on the box is a choice, not a fact. If something looks like a dire wolf, carries a handful of dire wolf genes, and was born from a dog into a world the real dire wolf has not seen in 12,000 years, what is it? A miracle? A marketing trick? Or the first rough draft of something we do not even have a word for yet? Let me know down below. And if you want to know which animal Colossal is dragging out of extinction next, and why that one might actually change the world, that story is waiting for you right now on screen.